tension. So this is the Aga Khanis. Now we move to the third branch, and that is who? The Duruz. And the Duruz are the smallest of the Ismaili Shia, and they broke away in the time of the Fatimid Khalifa Al-Hakim bi Amrillah. And they considered Al-Hakim bi Amrillah to be God incarnate. They said Al-Hakim is a manifestation of God himself, and they don't call themselves Duruz, they call themselves Muwahhidun. They call themselves the people of Tawheed. And they're around a million people. And the Duruz are one of the most secretive branches of Islam, and in fact they don't even consider themselves to be Muslim, generally speaking, but they are emanating from Islam. By the way, for the youngers in the audience, George Clooney's wife is from this branch, okay? That lady is from this Duruz branch. The elders have no clue. That's good, alhamdulillah, stay that way. When it comes to the akhirah, the Duruz are very explicit. The Duruz believe in reincarnation and transmigration. The Duruz don't believe in heaven and hell. They don't believe in barzakh. They deny qiyamah. There is no such thing as qiyamah. If you are a good Duruz, you will be reincarnated in a better Duruz next time you come to life. Okay? And they believe as well that the soul cannot exist without the body. That as soon as the soul is taken away, it must enter a body. So as soon as somebody dies, the soul enters a baby somewhere in the world. Okay, that is their theology. And they also believe that the number of souls is finite. I don't know how they tally that up with human populations increasing. La adri, I don't know. They believe that the number of souls is finite. They also are pretty sexist in that if you were a male Durzi, your reincarnation will be to another male Durzi, up or down. Meaning if you're good or bad. Female Durzi, female, up or down. So the soul also has a gender. So the soul cannot go into the other gender. And the Duruz have a hierarchy of people. 85% of them are called Juhal. This is what they call themselves. I'm not calling them this. Juhal means they don't know what their religion is. And 15% are called, what are they called? Uqqal. Uqqal. People of intellect. Okay? Now this is interesting. The Duruz, as a point of theology, do not teach 85% of their people their theology. And they're content with that. 85% of their own people are content that we don't care. We don't know anything about our theology. We're just Duruz. It's a cultural manifestation. Only 15% are initiated and taught, and then some of them become uqqal. And uqqal, they wear special turbans and they have a special mustache that if you live in Lebanon, you know, they live in the Jabal Darz, the famous area over there. And of course, in our times, the Israeli government has adopted them, and they are very active in Israel, and they have a special branch of the IDF. The IDF, a special branch or a very elite branch, one of the most harsh against the Palestinians, is the Duruz. And they are enemies of, there's a lot of animosity between Duruz and between the Sunnis. The point is, from their perspective, this notion of souls, the goal is to keep on doing a good life so that you become higher and higher until you're resurrected in the Uqqal. And then within the Uqqal, they have a hierarchy, and then there's the ultimate Sheikh, the big guy. And then if you get to that level and you live a good life, then your soul will be reunited with the active intellect, which is essentially Ismaili theology, okay? And the active intellect is essentially God himself, okay? So this is the notion of the Duruz. Now the final group that we're going to do, any group that's left, anybody knows which group is left? Which group is that? That's what we're going to come to. Which group is left now? Nah, I'm not caring about that group. They don't even deserve a mention. Aslan. I'm not even. So the group that is left of classical Islam that we haven't done, and that will be our final group before we open up for Q&A, is the group known as the Alawis or the Nusayris. The Alawis or the Nusayris. And the Alawis or Nusayris, this is a group that a lot of people mistakenly lump with Ismaili Islam, and this is a big error. The Nusayris have nothing to do with Ismailism as a trend. They are affected by and they have imported Ismaili doctrines, but the origin of the Nusayris is actually Twelver Shi'ism, not Ismailism. The origin of the Nusaydis is Twelver Shi'ism. Why? Because when the 11th Imam died, Al-Hasan al-Askari, of course, history and everybody except for the 12 Shia believed that the 11th Imam did not have a child, right? This is well known in history, that the belief of historians and the belief of everybody other than 12 Shia is that Al-Hasan al-Askari died as a young man without getting married, and he didn't have any concubine, he didn't have any slave girl. That's, of course, it's halal to have a concubine, it's halal to get married. He didn't get married, and he died without a child. What are you going to do when the Imam dies without a child? The biggest crisis of original Shi'i Islam was the death of the 11th Imam without a son. Now, we believe, and this is our belief, and I say this without disrespect, because I never want to disrespect a group that bows its head to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I never want to do that. And I never want to teach something that will inspire hatred. I disagree with 12er theology, and I'm Sunni, but I don't see the point in fanning the fuels of hatred and fire. That's not what we do. So I'm speaking factually. We Sunnis believe Hasan al-Askari died childless. The 12er Shi'as believe that he had a secret concubine, and this concubine was pregnant and she was smuggled out and she gave birth in a cave in Iraq, in Samarra, and that secret child was none other than Imam Mahdi. And the Imam Mahdi is therefore hidden, and he has not been seen for over 1,000 something years. And so they believe the 12th Imam is Imam al-Ghaib, because he was never seen. And he's still alive, he's still around to this day, and he's still hadir nadir. This is the Hazar Nazir, this is where it comes from, not from the other group. So they believe that the Imam is everywhere and nowhere, that he can be wherever he wants to be. Now, when the 11th Imam died, Hasan al-Askari, at least 15 groups formed, trying to figure out what to do with the death of Hasan al-Askari, because it's a theological crisis. Of all those groups, only 2 remain. One of them is the bulk of Shi'ism, that's 12er Shi'ism. And why it became the bulk? It goes back to the Babaways and the Buwayhids, the Buwayhid dynasty and whatnot. That's the Buwayhid Vizirate. That's besides the point. One small splinter group remained, and that is the Nusaydis. The Nusaydis are perhaps the smallest of the classical sects of Islam, and they were called Nusaydis throughout their entire history after Ibn Nusayd, who was their founder and the student of Hasan al-Askari. This man, Nusayd, was a student of Hasan al-Askari, and he then began preaching a very different theology. And to be brutally honest, and I don't mind being a little bit harsh with those groups, because they are not within Islam. Obviously, we understand Duruz, and we believe the Nizaris and the Nusaydis, they are not really considered to be Muslim. When you do not bow your head down to Allah, when there is no Salah, there is no Quran, there is no Dhikr, there is no Ramadan, then there is no Islam. The other groups we mentioned, they have all of these things. But these final groups, nothing. And the Nusaydis are, as we know now, because as you should all know, the people in charge of Syria, they are from this branch. Only around 100 years ago, they began calling themselves Alawis. This term was unknown in Islamic history. The term Alawi was unknown in Islamic history. They only invented this term. Why? Because they wanted to get some type of recognition with the Muslims, because Ali and Alawi sounds better than Nusayri. We're to do with Ali. And they have a very bizarre trinity. They believe in a trinity that is, again, this is not the time to get into that. I kid you not, I have taught advanced classes about these things. Without exaggeration, the students get a headache when I try to explain their theology. It's so bizarre from what we are used to. And frankly, they themselves don't know their theology. Out of all of the groups of Islam, perhaps this group is the most secretive. They do not allow the publication of their own books. To get access to their original books, it is something that is almost impossible. And in fact, the first famous person to expose this group was somebody from within their own camp by the name of Sulaiman al-Afandi. Around 150 years ago, he became a Christian, and he was one of their shuyukh. And when he became a Christian, he wrote an expose of the Nusaydis, and he called it Al-Baqura Al-Sulaymaniyya. And this was published, and he explained for the first time in detail the theology and the psychology and the history of the Nusaydis, and he mentioned some very, very outrageous things which we now know to be true. The Nusaydis coaxed him back, they bribed him, they promised to protect him, they said, we forgive you, whatnot, because he went into exile outside of Lebanon. They brought him back, Syria, they brought him back and they burnt him alive, they cut him up to pieces, and they completely exterminated his body and whatnot to make an example. This is what's going to happen when you expose our theology. I have a copy of the Baqura Sulaymaniyya, by the way. Inshallah, when I teach the class, we will go over these issues of what they believe. Now, what do they believe? So they believe, like the Duruz, in the transmigration of the souls. However, they go even beyond this, and it is essentially just like Buddhist and Hindu beliefs. At least the Duruz, they believe the human soul will enter another human body. As for the Alawis, or the Nusaydis we should call them, they believe the soul can enter anything, even animals, even plants and rocks and stones, which is essentially the belief of some karmic, dharmic religions as well. So the belief of the Nusaydis, there is no heaven and hell, there is no resurrection, there is no qiyamah. The soul, if it was a good entity, will go to a higher level, and if it was a bad entity, it will go to a lower level until it will break away from the chain of humanity. If it is a good person, eventually it will become a part of the divine Noor-i Ilahi. And the soul will become God then. And that is why amongst the masses of the Nusaydis, and I know this for a fact, I've spoken with a number of them, they believe, this is a masses thing, that when the thunder is heard, this is like the gods speaking, or the ruh of the believers that have become gods now, right? So the ruh becomes the God himself. So the goal is the ruh is going to rise up until it becomes the Noor-i Ilahi. And this is a belief that has nothing to do with Islam, and that's why their understanding in this world as well is so bizarre and weird. Now, why did I mention this tangent about all these groups? Believe it or not, to actually bring about a sense of unity with the groups that actually believe in Qiyamah. Because when you compare and contrast these last three groups with the first 5 or 6, you can see a clear demarcation, can you not? And this demarcation is the demarcation of Iman and Kufr. It's as simple as that. No matter what you want to say about the beliefs of the first few groups, at least they believe in Jannah and Jahannam and Qiyamah and Hisab and Mizan and Adab and Na'im al-Qabr and whatnot. And anybody who's going to believe in this ilm al-Ghayb, because it's ilm al-Ghayb, anybody who's going to believe in this, where are they getting that from? From Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And therefore, those other groups might have some major errors and mistakes. I'm not excusing that. But in the end of the day, in my humble opinion, and this is the position of the vast majority of ulama, anyone who says, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, and affirms the general issues of Tawheed and Iman and Risala and Akhirah, generally speaking, they're within Islam. And these other last groups that we have done, they don't do that. Therefore, they're outside the fold of Islam. Jayyid. With this, inshallah ta'ala, we conclude by a call for action, and then we open the floor for Q&A. And we also have people that are asking from overseas as well, so we'll give them some time. The call for action is as follows. These 10 lessons, these 10 lectures that we've given about the barzakh, I want you to really think long and hard. What is the impact of this knowledge on our lives? Because me and you will be a part of that world very soon. If not tomorrow, day after tomorrow, maybe even today. We will enter this world very soon. Every single ancestor of mine and yours from the time of Adam is right now in the barzakh. And every single child of ours that is born or will be born until Qiyamah will enter that barzakh. It is an inevitable reality. وَمِنْ وَرَائِهِمْ بَرْزَخٌ إِلَى يَوْمِ يُبْعَثُونَ. In front of them is that barzakh until the day they are resurrected. My goal, my purpose with this knowledge isn't just so that it is something abstract that we just ponder over, and life goes on. The goal is that if we truly believe in the barzakh, and inshallah all of us do, that we make sure that we get the best of the barzakh, that we make sure that we are interacting with the anbiya and the salihin and the shuhada and the siddiqeen, that we make sure that our qabr is a rawda min riyad al-jannah and not of the places of Jahannam, that we make sure that the malaika of rahmah come and they take us out gently and they make us covered up with the fragrances of Jannah, with the hanut of Jannah, with the kafur of Jannah. That's what we want. We don't want the opposite. So this knowledge that we've studied in these 10 lessons, it should bring about a change in our attitude, in our lifestyles. We should prepare for malakul maut. We should prepare for barzakh. We should prepare for the qabr. As our Prophet ﷺ said, I have not seen anything except that the qabr is more terrifying for me than anything I've seen. Al-qabr is more terrifying, and every one of us is going to be in that state. So the goal of this knowledge that we have, and this is why Allah and His Messenger have told us, the goal of this knowledge is that it impacts us so that we prepare for that time, and to also realize that, as our Prophet ﷺ said, Al-qabru awwalu manazilin min manazil al-akhirah. The qabr is the first manzila from all the manazil al-akhirah. If the first manzila is good, the rest of the manazil will be good. And if the first manzila was not good, then the rest will be worse than that. So we need to prepare so that insha'Allah ta'ala we have the best of the best at the time of our deaths and what will happen afterwards. And with this we open the floor insha'Allah ta'ala for Q&A. And I'll begin with